Introduction. My name is Dr. Richard Gonzalez, and I'm the president of the College of Biomedical Technology. My friends call me Monty, so please call me Monty. We're really excited to get this program launched. It's been a long time coming. We partnered with our friends at Medical Imaging Solutions, Mr. Arnold Bates, and President and CEO at MIS. And I think that is the Chief Operating Officer. We have some other folks here at MIS as well. From CDET, we also have Mr. Bassett, he's the Chief Strategy Officer for our company. So Matt Bassett is from Director of Learning Technology. Mr. Bond, they're just giant thinker, innovator. But we're doing different things in education and training, trying to take a different approach. So what we did, the genesis for our project and our program really started with our biomed program. The College of Biomedical Technology certificate degree programs, training, development, and upskilling. And we graduate about 225 to 250 biomeds a year currently, nationally. So we get technicians from all over the place. Our strength has historically really been associated with the fact that we've maintained really strong relationships with the service providers across the country, healthcare organizations, ISOs, and OEMs, and have really sought to foster strong relationships with them so that when our students reach the sort of the end of their training and education, we turn to the service providers and those partners, and we look to them to provide externship opportunities, hands-on training opportunities, to then sort of bridge that gap between what they learn in the school and what they go do in the field. So it's been a really successful model. We've had tremendous growth and success over the last few years. And we took that and said, now let's work our way into imaging. And the only way we're going to do that is with a strong imaging partner with a strong background in history and facilities and protocol to do it. And that brought us to Medical Imaging Solutions. So for about the last year and a half, we've worked hard collaboratively to build out an imaging program, which includes a really nice broad array of programming. I'll have David speak to those in more detail. Got some other things to sort of innovate. So I'm going to try to advance this. Okay. So the background, myself, Bill, and Mr. Scott McKnight is not here tonight. For the Matt, I can never get a picture out of Matt, so it's until you get a picture, you're not on the board. Matt is also part of our executive leadership team. Medical Imaging Solutions, as I introduced you, Mr. Arnold Bates, David Anthony. There's some other key people on here. One other person on this board here, Amanda Gaskin. Amanda, at the back of the room, is one of our lead developers for our program. And she, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're really the expert in women's health series ultrasounds and certainly mammography. But she's got a much broader background and perspective in imaging. She's just been a fantastic partner in terms of developing the courses, programming, and content. One of the big differentiators in the approach that we're taking in terms of our how we're going to develop the training is we are looking at the value of accreditation in training. And our programs and content are all accredited through our accreditation body, which is approved by and authorized by the Department of Education. So it's much more of a educational-based program first and foremost. It's rooted in that. The way we've taken the development steps and delivery of that, it's been really important that we stay tested in accreditation, and that will be an important value proposition and differentiator from our program and other programs. It's just not going to a school and getting some training. You're going to go, you get some training to be closely monitored and scrutinized by the Department of Education and an accrediting body. There's value to that. The outcomes have value to that. The results of these courses that we have ultimately will result in some sort of full certification. We have not quite designed that yet because it's interesting in higher education. If you are going to develop a new program, it can take years to develop a program, or you can put together a bunch of courses, get them approved, and then say, I'd like these to be a program. So we've kind of backed into that a little bit, but at some point in the near future, you will see some sort of certification coming out. We have 3 locations nationally, which is another differentiator. What we're trying to do is make accessibility to imaging training something that's not as challenging. We have our primary training location is in Woodstock, Georgia, about 55 minutes north of Atlanta. We have 40,000 square foot facility there, state of the art. We got research and development taking place in there. Just about every sort of imaging device you can think of right in that warehouse. It is a living, breathing operational center that we have carved out some beautiful training space. Yes. Classrooms, labs, training base, and again, I'll let David speak to that in a little bit more detail. We're pretty proud of the site and facility and things that will take place in there. Similar, and that is opening up this year. That will be ready for training in Henderson, Nevada. We have a slightly smaller space, a 10,000 square foot facility, which will be opening up in the fall. We conduct training out there as well. Again, calendar programming dates still to come. We have not completed development outside it. And then our central headquarters is located in San Antonio, Texas. We can see that within the next 12 to 18 months, we'll also be opening up probably a training center there. So I don't want to put the cart in front of the horse, but right now that's what we're looking at. Woodstock, Georgia this year. Henderson, probably by the end of the year, and sometime after that, looking at probably conducting some training in San Antonio, Texas too. So that nice geographical footprint makes accessing training a little bit easier and more palatable. We think that's a nice differentiator. Dave, you want to come talk about the facilities, specifically training days, types of training we're going to be able to provide?
Yeah, sure. So the Imaging Academy, as Monty mentioned, is kind of a spawned off of the need. And sorry, I didn't get your name.
Harold Shooter.
Harold, we can't do some introductions real quick. I'll better be able to speak to you guys if I know where you're from. But I know you're UCSF, you're in-house.
Yes, I'm in-house, and yeah, this has a particular interest in me as we develop our biomed engineers and bring them into an imaging side of things, and how we're going to develop those kinds of certifications, and get them training.
Yeah,
cost-effective way to do that.
Well, you made a comment previously before we got started here that kind of run to me where, it's hard to find good talent, good engineers. It's certainly hard to find the educational platform to get that. And that was a struggle that we've had for the last 25 years that we've been in businesses. You can steal from the competitors, maybe get an OEM guy that's retiring, and to try to do what you can to build somebody. And it's just to keep up. It was a treadmill, and that's what spawned the Imaging Academy. And what Monty's talking about here as it relates to the centers is in Woodstock, Georgia. That's where we will have 12 bays, and that'll be the X-ray, MRI, and CT, and they'll have various flavors, kind of what you're similar to seeing in an RCI or a TRI. The players that are out there now, they've got those kind of bays, and we'll certainly have those. You have to have that hands-on approach, but I think when Matt and Kristen start talking about our approach with the VR technology and some of the off-site training, I think that's what we're going to stand off a little bit differently. Certainly help out an in-house group that can't afford to have a guy gone for weeks on end at a time, kind of ramp that stuff up. So just to answer your question, that's what's going to go on in Woodstock, and to your point, in Las Vegas, there's going to be a smaller scale of it, and we'll address the modality specific training as it comes and as the needs come.
And got to finish the introductions. I started that, and then I skipped right now.
I'm Andy Wheeler. I'm with Monty Health Solutions. I'm here because I got a MetaQuest for Christmas, and I wanted to do something other than Beat Saber with it, right? But also, I've known Arnold Bates and David Anthony for years. Be highly innovative folks, so I'm interested to see what you got here. It's amazing.
Yeah, I'm Dustin Zimmerman. I work for Monty Health Solutions, and I kind of oversee the training as well as some other departments. So I'm interested to see the different approach, because obviously, like you said, getting guys out in the field for 2 weeks, 3 weeks at a time is not doable with certain contract requirements and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to seeing it. And I've known this guy forever, so.
Are you from us?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's a small world.
Yeah.
Harold, that's you. Mike?
Mike Powers, the drink record in healthcare. So I'm here because I'm presenting one.
My name is Alberto. I represent City Open Center. Our biomed department is building an in-house coverage for the executive director of engineers. biomed partners to develop some sort of in-house training and coverage for it.
Perfect.
Jeremy listening for our procedures in California, here. We have a remote location target training so see.
I also very good. So you're training for barring it.
Perfect. And this is the support staff. No one. Well, each one of you guys being in those in-house groups have the same challenges that we have as we're an independent service organization, a standalone independent service organization. And just to be very clear, MIS is the technical background and obviously the infrastructure of the Imaging Academy, but it's its own legs. It's got its own legs, and we're going to use it just as a tool for the talent pipeline that we need as well. That's kind of the genesis of why we did that. Back in the back, Amanda, you can expand a little bit on your introduction because you're critical to this.
So I started in this industry with the OEMs. That was my background. I worked for Hologic, Philips, and GE. Through that, I've gotten a lot of OEM training, obviously, and I've gotten third-party training. And to me, this is something, Imaging Academy, that we started building together, something that I'm really, really passionate about. And so I've been that person sitting in a classroom, listening to somebody read off a manual. I've been that person where my training gets canceled last minute because, needs of the hospital, the clinic, whatever. So my background is that at GE I did a lot of training as well, so I do have a background in product-specific training and things like that. So this has been a great opportunity working with CBET that does have a background in building the courses and things like that. So we brought that all together, bring together the imaging.
Oh, I'm Christian Bond. I'm a DoD military BMAT retiree, just retired, and yep, I'm the nitrous for the PR for Imaging Academy.
Well said.
Matt Bassick, I'm the Director of Learning Technologies for College of Biomedical Technology and Imaging Academy. So my department is doing VR, which is why we're here.
And we'd be lying if we didn't say that Matt, Christian, and Amanda are truly the backbone of this whole technology, VR function of it for sure, the curriculum, all of it. You guys have done a tremendous job to pull this all together. So to your point, I want to kind of be a roundtable talk so that you guys can query these folks after they show you the stuff and get the industry's questions and answers and see what y'all's thoughts are. Because we're right in the infancy stages of getting all this developed, and we're not too far past something where we couldn't veer if we needed to that would fit some of y'all's criteria.
So we'll move forward here. Just a couple of other, quick background components. One of the things I mentioned is on the education side, we've been training biomeds for quite a few years. Currently pushing out 225 to 250 graduates annually out of our programs across the nation. Another hallmark of our program is that we want to closely connect the biomed education and training that we currently provide to the imaging training requirements. And so we've integrated some of the imaging requirements into our existing biomed programs. So when our graduates leave, they do have a baseline understanding and knowledge of general principles associated with imaging, engineer work. Okay? They're not imaging engineers yet, but they have that baseline. They have an understanding of what that next step in their career path would look like, and the base foundation for moving into an imaging program. So our imaging program that we've developed is purposely structured around that baseline. So we're kind of excited about that. It's our hope that we're going to be able to grow that pipeline of talent from our biomed graduates into more imaging engineers in the future as well. Piece of it.
That's something I want to table, but come back to you guys that are having in-house groups and doing this biomed transition, because not every biomed technician is a good transition. I want to hear y'all something on that.
If anybody wants to jump in, please feel free. I'll usually talk till I'm ready. Yeah, this is kind of a rough slide, but I'm just going to tell you what this says. Think about it. What we've done in the past is we have a biomed certificate program. It's about 6 months in length. We have a biomed associate degree program that's about 15 months in length. We have a couple of short courses, an MET course for biomeds that are really on the first rung of the ladder. The METs that are very basic level, so we have a separate course for that. We worked closely with Amy on the development of the apprenticeship program. We serve as an RTI for the apprenticeship program. We're excited about that. And we also work very closely with DoD Skillbridge. We're a majority veteran-owned company and have really close ties and relationships with DoD. And we're very proud of the work we do with DoD Skillbridge. So if you have hired veterans in the past, or you work closely with DoD Skillbridge in the past, it's a fantastic program. Provides you an opportunity to have a veteran in your facility for up to 6 months that you don't pay, that you're prohibited under law from paying because they're still receiving their active duty pay benefits. So just the Skillbridge program, you get sort of a front row seat to think really talented individuals. You interview them, you treat them like an apprentice, you bring them in. If after that 6 months you're satisfied with the work they're doing and you like who they are, they fit your culture, you have an opportunity to hire them. It's a great program. Had tremendous success with that. When we do that, if we recruit and bring in Skillbridge candidates to our programs, either into the biomed program or the imaging program or both, put them through our training, and we look to industry partners for who's in need of talent. And our goal is to get those trained individuals to you to staff. Amanda, you want to talk to this slide?
So this one's easier to read, but not necessarily easy to understand. So the idea to begin with, so the first course that we have would be Introduction to Imaging. And the idea behind Introduction to Imaging is, so we have a biomed, we have an in-house guy, we have somebody that's just starting the industry, whether it be their certificate program or somebody that's been a BMET for years. So how do you get them from a BMET to an imaging engineer? There is a lot of crossover, but there is stuff that's imaging specific, and you have to meet that need for the imaging specific. So that would be the introduction to imaging. There are some people that don't need it. And you may have somebody that's got 15 years of experience where he's always been there, he's done the PMs, he's followed the service guy that's in there doing service and everything like that. Maybe he doesn't need that. So after the introduction to imaging, then we can move over to the advanced imaging. And advanced imaging is going to be really technical heavy. It's going to be the guy that by the time that they're finished, they will have worked on a lot of different, mostly x-ray, women's health, ultrasound, bone density, all of that. They're going to get a little bit of knowledge in all of that, along with a little bit of CT and MR. They're at least going to know the principles of, this is what it's used to make this. And you can see what's kind of included in that advanced imaging would be installations, calibrations, repair and PMs. And certification is actually the other thing we're building into that is a CRES prep course. So they'll have a week of CRES prep. So ideally, after they finish the advanced imaging course, if they do want to take the CRES test, they should have the knowledge and skills to be able to do that. And then under our specialty and hybrid classes, so you'll see a lot of things in there that kind of sound familiar. Has anybody ever heard of a portable X-ray class? Not an MX4 class, not a mobile DART class, nothing, right? You have to go to product specific. There's some things in common in every single portable. They all run on batteries, right? So they should know that. The idea behind knowing the adjustable SID, but hey, you're not doing a chest X-ray on a portable, right? So if you're in a hospital environment and somebody says, hey, I was using this to do a chest X-ray on a 400-pound patient, my image doesn't look great. Maybe you know a little bit about that, regardless who the manufacturer is. And then we also have the C-arm course, CT and PET, MRI, diagnostic grab, fluoroscopy. So we'll have introduction courses, basic courses for every single one of those. They're not product specific. We're actually specifically making them not product specific. We want them to be able to work on several different things, so that way they have more than just that one single product that they worked on. It's not an advanced course. You're not going to walk out of that class and be an expert on all of them, because we don't want them to be. The idea is they're going to know how to work on it. They're going to know the basics of how it works. And then from there, once they go back and they see it at their hospital, then they say, oh, I need this product specific because I have these in my hospital. So they have the knowledge to get there, and then they have the actual course. The Women's Health Series, one of the things that we found is, if you think about it, if you think of a women's center, what are the 3 things that every women's center has? Mammo, ultrasound, and bone density. So right now, if you want to send somebody to a course, you have to pick a product-specific course, you have to pick a product-specific mammo course, and a product-specific ultrasound. Most facilities have more than one ultrasound. They don't just have one type. They don't just have, they may have several different kinds of bone densities. Mammo, usually there's only one manufacturer, but what if you have 2 different facilities and they're 2 different ones? So the idea behind that is they're taught separately, but when you get to the lab portion of the course, you can take 1 week of labs that will cover all of those. If you only want to send somebody for ultrasound, then they can come in for the ultrasound. So that's what we're doing different, specifically with the specialty, and the hybrid courses are a mixture of online courses and in-person lab. So they don't miss the in-person part as well. It's just not 2 weeks taking a course that we think could be short. And then the last, the specialty or asynchronous courses, there's a lot of classes that you have to take, certifications that are required. One of the things I do is I am my company's RSO. So radiation safety is pretty important, and it's also a requirement. So a lot of facilities have it, but then there's also a lot of companies that they need to take it. There's a lot of states that they're increasing their requirements. You have to show proof that somebody did it. And the same thing, like MRI safety is not on there, but that is another one, MRI safety. So there's a lot of facilities that are requiring that for people that, even if they're not the MRI engineers, they need to have the MRI safety course in order to work in that general area. So those classes will be available online. The material is online. You access the material online. You take the test, and if you complete it, you get your certification. And that can be done completely asynchronous. Yes.
For the specialty hybrid, if I have an engineer who's trained on CT and I listen to Phillips CT, Phillips will say, we'll waive the CT basics class because you know CT basics. Are you finding that people who have been to these courses are also getting those basics classes waived by the manufacturers?
That's our goal. That's specifically why we're doing it. And like I said, it goes back to sometimes if you go to a Philips CT basics course and then you need to take a Siemens CT course, they say no, that doesn't count. So now you're sending somebody to another course at $15,000 a piece. So that's the whole purpose, to get rid of it, and that's why it's not manufacturer specific. Any other questions?
Andrew, you did such a good job, so much better than all mistakes are mine. So the other course on that I may be important to you is the Biomedical Imaging Information Systems course. That's a 6-week course that is specifically designed to address issues that change your subject matter expertise covers, looking at IT, cybersecurity, information security issues associated with imaging. That's a course we're particularly proud of. Our work's gone into that. I think that would be something that in the future you'll be hearing about and it's of interest to you. Since Harold addressed a lot of those topics we had in that last session. Another sort of different approach that we're taking on this. If you look at traditional education, just by a show of hands, how many of you graduated from a traditional college or university? So probably the majority, myself included. We've taken, there's a massive revolution that's taking place in higher education, and sort of that industrial era thinking that drove a lot of the sort of time-based education where your job as a student is to go sit in a class and receive training or education for a certain period of time. At the end of that, you either pass or you fail. That's not the approach we're taking. Our approach is really about being able to demonstrate competency. It's a competency-based approach, not a time-based approach. And by utilizing technology, AR, VR, things that we're able to do there, sort of expand and extend the academic life cycle of the student so that the student has access to the information and the education for a much longer period of time. We find a huge value in that. So Matt gets his opportunity to speak here, and I'm going to ask him to talk a little bit about the differences in terms of results from training that includes virtual reality and other technologies, and training that does not. But it's a really interesting sort of consideration. That was a huge part of why we decided to integrate and augment our training by adding VR components to a lot of that. Amanda hit on this a little bit. We talked about a hybrid course design. It is a hybrid course. It's not just a neat word, but it's got an actual formula to it. And our formula kind of looks like this. If you take the advanced imaging course that Matt spoke to a minute ago, outlined it so that it looks like this. There's about a 5-week component that's online. That's all prep development with theory, basic principles, things that you don't need to be at one of our facilities to learn. You can learn that independently without the downtime away from your facility, away from your job and your place of duty. So we have that component built in. Once that's out of the way, then that individual schedules their time to show up at the facility and they get their hands-on training. Their hands-on training is intense hands-on training. It's not punctuated by lectures in the classroom. That stuff has been dealt with out there. So it's about maximizing your time, minimizing your downtime away from your facilities and place of duty. And then when you're done, you're going to have continued access to the content. So when you walk away, you don't close the book and walk away from your class. You're still going to be able to go back and perhaps redress topics you cannot completely understand. And it's our hope that the VR capability provides access to the ability to do that. Extend that academic life cycle.
Well, yeah, let's get into the fun stuff. So, how many people have put on a VR headset for whatever reason? So that's like 100%. That's pretty good. So, entertainment purposes, it's usually about 60% of adults have used VR for some kind of entertainment, so video games or just digesting content. How many people have put on a VR headset for training in particular? So maybe.
What did you get? There's only a demonstration. GE, when I was with GE, they were around VR trying to adapt things for in the head while they're out there troubleshooting. Yeah. And you get into the MR and do some things.
So GE's idea behind it is what they wanted to do, and this is going to make sense what Matt's doing. So GE's concept was, how do we create this exactly so you can get inside the MRI, right? But the problem is that we're not at a spot in VR technology where you can put on a headset in California where the tech support engineer that's in Milwaukee can see what you're looking at. But then they said, okay, well, what's the next step? We built all this VR thing, right? So we exploded SMR, and we have all these pieces and components. So the only thing that they could come up with were these sensors, which were 2 40-inch TVs that had to be set up with several different computers that had to be daisy-chained together, and that was going to be their remote training, except the remote training could only be taken in several different locations where they had to go and set it up, and they had to rent a facility to set it up. There's not very much remote training involved in that, right? So.
Interesting. Yeah, and that's really the lay of the land. Is there's not a lot of VR training out there that's specifically for. I think you see a little bit. It's a lot of it's geared towards clinicians and doctors and nurses actually, doing operator functions. But for actual technicians for fixing equipment, it's virtually nothing's out there. So 20% of adults have probably used VR for training. That number kind of is rough because I think, depending on the audience, it fluctuates. But in general, we're at the very front end of the wave. Usually you see in learning, I'm a learning development guy, been doing it for 15 years. Basically, anything that entertainment does first, learning latches onto and does next. So it's like, gamification was a big trend, video content, that was a big trend, obviously still very powerful tools. VR is next. VR, AR, all the different technologies of mixed reality. And so that's what we're doing with the Imaging Academy. So we've done, I want to show you the demo. I was going to do just the short 90-second version, but we got a little bit of time, so I'm actually going to fire up the long version. And if you come to our booth, we actually have an opportunity to put on the Oculus, and you guys can check it out for yourselves. But it's funny, we're actually, the demo that we've done is around a contrast injector, and it's the exact same training they're doing right next door. So on the other side of this wall, they're currently doing an MRAD contrast injector, and that's the PM that we've done here. So I'm going to pull it up. I'm going to jump out of your presentation here, Monty, just because I want to show the long version of the course, so I'm just gonna see if I can jump in here really quick. Give me a second. I got to do the old school, type in the URL. So let's see here. It is.
So while you're doing that, I want to let you know that we have these are cardboard, Google Cardboard VR
6.5
devices. You can put them together with this phone, and you can go look at YouTube VR. Just a little something.
3.5.
But so that's what we're trying to do. So in addition to what I've already told you, I spent the last 4 years trying to figure out how to get VR for BMEDs. Just BMEDs. That's all I do. I'm a BMED. I love BMEDs. We do our thing. We support the world. Can't do it without us. We can't. But BMEDs are the ones that we need to treat, right? We got to take something complex and at least learn, which I learned from Dustin. Hey, working in tri-service DoD environment, you get a real.
I'm trying to find my mouse.
Right? It's a little different, right? Maybe a lot different compared to the average BMED we have in the splint side. Yeah, so I am truly trying to teach somebody that it's like my wife or my mother doesn't know anything about this equipment and get them through the PM so they can do it a couple times, and then when they shadow somebody for real, that's truly our goal.
All right, so this is the long format. It's about 12 minutes long. Basically, it's just going to walk you through exactly what we developed, which is an interaction on a PM on a contrast injector. So it's a walkthrough. You're sitting there with an audible instructor who's saying, hey, do this step at this time. Let me show you an animation of what this is supposed to look like. You pick up your controls and you physically do it. And then we can talk about what you think.
But we wrote the whole thing from script to animations to.
So there's not a lot of speakers.
Hi, welcome. We're excited to have you here with us today. We can always use some extra hands. Please take a moment to get familiar with our shop. Feel free to have a look around at the work area, workbench, tools, and the blue message board in front of you. I recommend picking up the tools and getting comfortable holding items with your virtual hands. Our virtual shop works just like the real world, with a couple of improvements. For example, if you drop something, it will magically disappear on the bench.
We got Grumpy Cat on the wall.
When you're ready, gaze at the start button on the blue message board. We'll jump into this contrast injector PM and see how far
you get some advantages.
Oh, and feel free. Okay, take a look at the left side of the injector. You should see a blue arrow telling you to rotate the injector. If you move your hand close to that little adjustment wheel, it will become larger and change your direction. This wheel can be used anytime to rotate the injector up and down. There's another adjustment wheel on the base of the roller. You can use this wheel when you need to spin the injector around.
You don't want to be grabbing
For now, go ahead and rotate the injector back so that the manual adjustment knobs on the bottom are pointed up towards the
He's going to advance here to the first step you're just managing. But basically, we're starting in the middle of the PM procedure.
Great. Now I want you to use the two flathead screwdrivers on the workbench to carefully pry up the two adjustment knobs. We provided an animation as a demonstration, so just copy what it's showing. I promise, this is the best way to remove these knobs.
Nobody believed me.
Yeah.
This is really what we're supposed to do.
Yeah, you actually have to take two flathead screwdrivers to pry those knobs, and that's the best way to see on camera.
Perfect. Now grab the loosened knob and visually inspect it for any cracks or damage in the plastic. The visual inspection is complete when you see a green check mark appear in the inspection progress circle. When you're done, place it in the highlighted area and do the same for the second knob.
We did go for some and some realness, right? You have to take out every single screw and put it away. Not like some where all the screws come out at once.
Yeah.
And then you just go, no, this is one screw at a
Yeah,
time.
since that last screw that you missed, that'll keep it covered.
Exactly, yeah.
And
You
then,
have to see where each one of the screws are.
Next,
And there's a
we need
sequence
to
to it,
carefully
so
inspect the outside of
once
the LED
we
lights.
advance it a little bit further,
Again,
you
you
see,
will need to look
like there's
for
a part
cracks
where you
and
got
when the green check mark
a
appears,
locking
you're done
mechanism that
inspecting.
you can't actually remove until I can take off the back panel. So that just like in real life, you have to take off the back panel or that thing's not coming out.
is that solitaire game from back angle?
Yeah.
Okay, now use the Phillips
I
screwdriver
can't
to
take
loosen the
that.
two
That
vents.
was definitely fun.
Like the adjustment knob, we'll keep the
But you know,
screws on the
those
storage
kind
mount.
of elements.
After you remove the first screw, repeat
So we
the
think
same
about
steps
VR,
for the
really
second
just
mount.
I'm gonna try to talk over this. I'm gonna mute him if I can, or at least turn him down. Yeah. But the thing about VR is there's really a sweet spot of about 20 minutes per interaction. If you're doing anything longer than 20 minutes, then people get fatigued or people, you might lose learner interest. And so we're trying to scope everything down to about 20 minutes, which a lot of procedures are around there. There's several that we get to cheat because you can say, something that's really heavy or has like a lot of bolts that are people interactions that you can streamline and abridge and squeeze it down to about 20 minutes. But that's going to be the target for all of the different interactions that we're doing. So for this one in particular, PM on contrast injectors, same type of thing. For our next device, which is we're actually going to be replacing the CT2, the CT device. And so again, it's condense it down, streamline it to about 20 minutes interaction. The good news is in VR, you don't actually have to hoist it up, which takes time and energy. You just kind of move it easily. VR has a ton of different advantages. That's just one of them. There's a lab that actually Zuckerberg he toured it before he decided to buy Oculus, and it's a lab out of Stanford. It's called Virtual Human Interaction Lab, and basically their professor at Stanford, he's kind of like one of the pioneers of VR. He came up with a kind of a guidelines around when's a good opportunity to use VR. And basically it comes down to if the interaction is otherwise dangerous, impossible, expensive, or rare, then VR is a good application. Anything outside of that is probably just go watch a video on YouTube or go it's not really worth it because there's a development cost associated. But think about this one is just a proof of concept type of a demo, but think about a CT gantry. I mean, is there anything that's expensive about that? Is there anything dangerous about that? High voltage?
Well, and how many times can you do CT2 remotes?
Right.
I mean, hopefully you don't have to do it very often. But the idea is now imagine if you have somebody who's going to do it the next 50 times.
Right.
Before they even have to do it.
So when I was in college, I learned how to drive a standard when I was parking cars valet, which is practicing on other people's Porsches, probably not good at. But if you're going to learn how to drive standard, are you going to learn how to drive it on a vintage Ferrari that costs $1 million? Yeah, exactly. So it's one of those things where if you have really intense type of interaction that would otherwise be expensive or unavailable, or maybe it's locked into one place, VR is a cool application of technology to be able to trim down that repetitions, opportunity, anyway. So you get it. So if you're tracking along, we're at probably about step 12. He's removing panels now, undoing clips, and so he's going to actually stick his hand inside of the unit and undo these little wire clips, which was an interesting thing to program. We're like, how do we open it kind of, because that's one of the things about the PM on this injector is you have to open it a little bit, but not all the way in order to pull out the clips so that you can take the whole panel off. So
You'll work them right out.
yeah, we figured it out. It's going to work. Yeah, and then you can also drop things and then lay them back on the table. Any questions on this demo? No, we can probably advance it a little bit.
Yeah, pretty cool. speak to the differences.
Yeah, definitely. So, as far as retention goes, and it's actually one of the slides, but as far as retention goes, the part it was the National Education Board did a study, and basically anything that was lecture, you retain about 5%. Anything that you're reading, you retain about 10%. If it's hands-on, including virtual, you're retaining 70%. And so the retention levels on doing training this way versus I'm just going to go watch a video or I'm going to, listen to somebody sitting in that classroom over there, it's probably a little bit different. And I can validate that because, as Christian says, you can show this to your mom. You can actually have somebody who's never done a PM on contrast injector, never even put on a headset, and in about 20 minutes, they're jumping in, you take off the headset and like, yeah, I can open up this device. I know exactly, what I'm supposed to do to take this apart. And that's just like, I like to think about that scene in The Matrix where they, unplug Neo from the simulation and he's like, I know Kung Fu. That's literally what we're doing. It's just, it's a streamline the whole uptime for training. It's not going to be 100%. There still is hands-on components, but it is bridging that gap between what can you accomplish from a remote setting in distance education without having to be on-site learning, training something. How far can we get down the road before you have to actually have somebody on site? And then this is just the surface. We're still doing some R&D stuff. There's some good stuff coming out.
So are you saying that phase 2 of this is Kung Fu?
Yeah. It could be anything. So we're actually looking at doing, like I said, the CT gantry that's next to changing out the batteries on AMX4. We got ultrasound on the dev plan. So a lot of different cool things coming out. But not to paint myself in a corner, which I probably always do anyways. But we're actually looking at doing some co-op VR. So you think about what you could accomplish if you had a virtual, CT Siemens definition, and I'm in California and you're in Texas and you're in Georgia, and we're all in the same room and we're looking at, okay, here's the bolts you take out first. Here's how you take out the CT, tube head. And so that's next.
Well, like her one, when she says that, you can do this tubes. Just looking at that injector right there, done injector. Whether you like that, how accessible is that? What are your ideas for that? So after we get that education, how familiar, this guy's got it for 6 weeks, you can do it as many times as you want. I mean, where's the re-education or what ideas do you guys have?
Yeah, great question. So we're still fleshing out some of our deployment and delivery platforms, but essentially the idea is we're going to do it's a platform. You have a license key, you have an authentication portal, type in your password, and then you have access to your trainings. You've already taken them, you paid for them, and you get to keep on.
As Matt said, typically you go on that platform and you go find that particular one, upload it up in the Oculus, because once you do the first one, you own the Oculus. Now, ideally, you've got your space at the hospital, you've got all your Oculus, and you can go log in and do this one, or do CT2 replacement, whatever it is.
Yeah, that's pretty. Yeah, that's what we're working on. We're building out that library of content, and yeah, it's designed to be just-in-time training, so on demand. So.
And that speaks to the ability to, for lack of better terms, grade, even on the VR function.
Yeah.
Very slow stages going through these.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a big part of what we're doing too, is we're building the back-end analytics. So exactly, and it could be, if you're an organization, you want to know, how your technicians are performing. So it could be like a performance evaluative component. But basically, we're programming it in so that we're getting, it's a learning standard called XAPI, which basically just sends statements and aggregates them into a database of, John did X at this time. So all of that together, you put some Power BI or some visualization software on it, and you get some pretty good business insights as to, hey, this is how people are interacting with this. This is how you're performing. This is the grade that you're your scoring. For this one, we bolted on a little check on knowledge at the end. So it's going to ask 5 questions on, hey, which screwdriver did you use for, which screw? And it's those little components that give you a good insight as to what, how people are, ultimately performing. How are you going to execute this in real life? Is my technician, skipping the critical step at, number 7 on the procedure? Those are the kind of things that you can really start to track and build some data around. Let me pull up these other slides really quick because there was some cool stuff that Mike put on there.
And one of the other nice things about this, if you've ever read instruction manuals written by OEMs.
They're great. That's what I do to fall asleep.
Yeah, Philips is one of my favorite from German to Dutch to English, but the words that don't translate, they just leave them at the other language. But so if you follow along with the instructions in here, and I know we fill it a lot, but if you, those instructions compared to what were in the PM instructions, that was one of the things that we really worked on, is to make sure that there's steps that actually make sense. So not only they're not just reading it and hoping that they did it correctly, they're actually doing it and seeing it correctly in guidelines and instructions that make sense.
I trademarked it, the perfect example. Because if you know what they're supposed to be doing, because you approved it as the order and sequence, then hopefully that's what. If you're getting repair calls or something, and it's like you can get more insight. So that's cool.
Like,
Facebook data tracking can be a good tool and an evil tool. We're going to try to use it.
That PM alone has a lot of steps in there that actually have you going from replacing gaskets, things like that. I bet anybody who's ever done a PM on one of those, somebody you did it yourself, you skip the gasket. What happens when you do that? You have no repair. You have right? You should know exactly which ones need to be replaced, because all of them are included in that.
Right. So just a couple more statistics. This is my National Education Association chart. 75%, including VR, basically that's your retention. So it's a very powerful tool. If you haven't tried it, come by the booth, we'll throw it on you. You tell me. You tell me how much you remember. And then in this particular, I like this quote from Jasmine Getz. She's basically saying that you're creating neural pathways when you're actually physically doing it. It's different than watching somebody. It's different than like watching a YouTube video or hearing somebody talk about it, or even if somebody's showing you the actual device. You picking it up in a real space where your brain has to process, wait, is this the right tool? Am I putting this here? Like, those little things make retention what it is. And so, yeah, I just thought that was good. A good quote. There's some business case statistics if you're interested. I got a book of them, but basically, it can streamline time frames. If people score better on tests and all kinds of good stuff. So let me go to the next one here. So this is a little bit of a peek behind the curtain and tell you a little bit about our process. So what we're doing is basically taking a unit and we're tearing it down, and we're doing photography and photogrammetry and turning it into 3D models. We're throwing into Autodesk 3ds Max and creating 8K renders because we're trying to future-proof. As hardware gets better and the next Quest comes out and it's got 8K resolution, you want to be able to have models that still play. And we basically take those and load them up into Unity, and we have a team and some in-house skill set to do 3D Unity interactions. And so it's all C# based, but basically just coded different interactions. We're working on our own SDK to where we can replicate these things really fast because, picking up a screwdriver and unscrewing the screw is the same. It doesn't matter if you're working on an MRI unit or on a contrast injector. It's the same type of functionality. And so we're classifying those things and making it interchangeable so we can speed up our dev process. Basically, yeah, we're just trying to be smart about how we go do this. It used to be that this kind of development was, I think we missed the this kind of development was cost prohibitive, and entry to even the hardware was like $1,000 2 years ago. Now it's like you go get a $300 quest. That's the cost of a textbook. I think my biology 101 textbook is $300. But anyway, yeah, that's probably random on enough. You got any questions for me?
How long do you think? Share expectations.
Yeah, we're moving. We're not skipping a beat. We're in constant development mode. Being here right now is big. But no, we've got a team, and we're built to scale on these development efforts, and so we're actually building several things at once. We're hoping to have a full library of offerings by the end of the year.
What controls your pipeline for the projects you work on next?
Whoever wants to partner with us, who's got a good idea.
I think that's a really good question. One of the two items I was covering is everything we're doing is customizable. So as a new launch for a new program, if our objective is to provide, an industry partner out there, that's the same sort of pioneering focus on education and training, which look like it's interested in working with us. So if you're sitting in this room, connected with that, because that's what we're here. We're looking to work with you and figure out what that direct need is. We don't tend to know everything. Like we've got pretty field pulse, but every organization talk to us about what you think your needs are. Something we work with wrong way. That's one. Two is talk a little bit about have a look at big picture perspective.
Yeah, we feel like if you get enough uses out of it, you get enough people using the system, you can start to compile data that gives you good insight as to where opportunities are. Where things need to be retrained, where things being missed, where things can be streamlined. And it's funny because you're using a lot of different systems that are using very similar technologies, and so a lot of that can be centralized. And so that's one of our approaches. Is we are centralizing that XAPI data, as I mentioned. All that goes into a centralized repository, and we can run business insights on it. Yeah, I think that answers the question.
It did, and it's interesting. Just a couple of our folks was there, like myself, Saturday I listened to Jeff Farm and Lisa Pride from Problem talking about the cost savings programs. This is one of them. In terms of education and training, how much it's spent. Oftentimes we hear from folks in the industry, I'm not concerned about saving money in this area. I get it, but how about spending more wisely? So for us, this is a cost optimization thing. Let's figure out how to do it better. If you can have a system that aggregates that data, says what your reports looks like, and how it works those dollars to make them powerful. That's kind of a big picture.
Yep. So I got I don't know what happened. I think we passed the PowerPoint back and forth different computers and that's the formatting. But this is just a screenshot of what it looks like in Unity, setting up the virtual space, building the collision boxes and the different colliders and interactions. So this is all Unity development. We've got some good, talented people working for us. Yeah, that's our program, that's our approach, and I invite you, please come check out the booth, put on the Oculus, see for yourself, and we'll make it bigger.
Yeah, as it relates to the Imaging Academy, just kind of circle back on the whole piece of the Academy piece. I mentioned we've got the basic, and then we've got the advanced learning. Some of you got to talk about you're at that stage right now where you're looking to do some of that. Those courses are active and live. I think the advanced portion, the first one goes for about April. Was that right, Amanda?